Hi, I'm at Kings County Distillery to find out about New York's amazing whiskey history. I'm going to go on a tour and then interview Colin, one of the co-founders, to discover why New York whiskey is so good.
Well, I grew up in Kentucky, so I was always sort of around moonshine and bourbon, and moved to New York, and would periodically go back to Kentucky, and I could find moonshine from the bootlegger, and then I would bring it back here, and people were really curious about it in New York. People thought it was really fascinating and just wanted to taste moonshine. It had such a bad reputation that people almost wanted, it was like so bad that maybe it's good. And actually it is good, and so it's kind of through that, there was a little demystification and kind of acceptance of this thing that has, for most of its history been under sort of a black cloud. And so to kind of rediscover this very traditional American drink was kind of how this business actually got started. If I were to ask the layman what makes whiskey good, they would say, oh, it has to be aged for 1,000 years, and it has to be made in Kentucky, and it has to be made with water that horse races drink, and like kind of all this bullshit that we've been fed for many years. And in fact, nobody really, when I was learning how to make whiskey, could answer that question in a way that I felt was really valid and had a lot of credibility. So for me, it was partly kind of this intellectual exploration of this culturally kind of mysterious beverage. And so by getting into moonshine, that was really a way to get into whiskey more broadly and learn for myself what actually makes whiskey good. One thing that gets lost a lot in discussion is ingredients. So we use a lot of organic ingredients, locally grown ingredients. That's 75% of what we use in the process. And then also what I would argue the most important component is the way it's distilled. And actually, at commercial distilleries, they go for efficiency rather than for flavor. And here we're a very inefficient distillery using pot stills, which is a very sort of old-fashioned or traditional technique, but actually yields, I would argue, better whiskey. So it's kind of those three things: ingredients, distillation, and aging are what I think makes good whiskey. I think generally culture's moving a little bit away from kind of this cocktail obsession and getting actually more interested in the actual component spirits, which for the longest time have just been kind of ignored to give emphasis to the cocktail. But I think kind of that may be changing, or at least becoming more inclusive.